Hello, it's time for Combat Patrol Carnage. So we're back with issue 60 then. We've covered our lore articles, we've built our models. Now it's time to paint them. So I've already painted 4. We're here to paint the Einhyr champion. So all we've got to do then is, of course, after that, play our game where we try these guys out against a swarm of Tyranids. They're not on their own. There's a Carl joining them and a couple of units of 2 Hearthkin warriors as well. So before that though, let's head over the table and paint our model. But before all of that, don't forget to do all the usual. Like this video if you're enjoying the content, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and drop me a comment down below. Love hearing back from you guys, especially about what you're doing in your hobby. Finally then, Combat Patrol Carnage is proudly sponsored by warbade.shop, your one-stop supply for all your hobby needs. They stock everything you need from getting started to expanding your force, to adding all your final details, and of course, they stock Combat Patrol magazine. So if you're looking for some extra issues or ones you've missed out on, check them out. They've got a good selection. There's a link as usual in the video description. Right then, let's head over to the table and we'll paint our Einhyr champion. So here we are back with issue 60 and it's time to do our paint guide. And as you can see, I've got 4 of the unit painted up already. Faces aren't exactly the best. I might go back in with some Carnage and flesh on some of them. Oddly though, the faces for these guys turned out not too bad. So yeah, a little bit better than the Carnage and flesh ones. Yeah, all in all, looking really good. The edge highlighting on the armour isn't the best. Went a bit too over chunky in some places. But we'll tidy that up at a later date. So, right then, we'll go through the paint guide and then we'll get this guy onto a painting handle and we'll bring in our paints and get this guy painted. So without further ado, let's adjust the camera and dive right on in. So into issue 60 we go then, and past our build guide, and here we are at our paint guide. So first off, we are painting all the flesh and hair on our models. So I'll pick out any bare, pale skin with Wraithbone, any dark skin with Carnage and flesh, any dark hair with Carnage and flesh or Abaddon black, depending on your personal choice or preference, any white hair with Corax white. You could also use Wraithbone if you wanted to for a blonder sort of hair. And then we're moving on to the rest of the details. So the majority of the details on this guy is going to be the metallics. So painting the entirety of the gun, all the cables, the spine in the exo armor, the guns, the pistons on the exo armor, the bionic eye here on the champion, and that's all going to be done with lead belcher. After that, I am skipping a step. I'm going to go do the Retributor armor details. So it's going to be all the inlaid gold detail, including the champion's crest there as well. And then we can change our paint water, come back and do all of our red and yellow details. So painting all the lights and lenses with Mephiston red, the plasma blades also Mephiston red, as well as the plumes on the champion's crest. And then finally, Avalanche Sunset is used to paint the casing of the gun, as well as the left knee pad and the casing of the grenade launcher. Then on to our shades. So Nuln Oil for white, flesh, the plasma blades, and then we're on to Agrax Earth Shade for the gold and silver details, Micron Flesh Shade for the yellow and the pale flesh. Then on to the edge highlighting, so picking out all the metallics, gold and silver with Stormhost Silver. So yeah, don't forget to get the crest here. As I always say, less is more when it comes to painting with Stormhost Silver. Any dark skin, picking out a Night Questor Flesh, light skin, paint highlighting with Pallid Witch Flesh. Mechanical Standard Grey, used to edge highlight all the armor panels. There's quite a few, some might be tricky to get to. But yeah, take your time working your way around the model. You've got the funny little sort of soft edges to the shoulder pads. So just take your time going around each of them, going on the edges as well. Yeah, get all that with Mechanical Standard Grey, and then our models are finished. Also, don't forget to do your eyes. So use the usual eye tutorials. So powdered witch flesh on top of a Abaddon black base, and then a small dot of Abaddon black for the pupil. And then we have our finished models. Incidentally, I have used 3 of the heads that the magazine told us to use. I've used this one, but I've done it on a different model. I've used that one, but again on a different model, and I have used the same champion head. I have used 2 alternate heads on these guys. So we've got another bear female head and another bear male head. Yeah, all in all, pretty cool. Right then, let's bring in our paint disc and our Hachette, and we'll get painting. So here we have our Hachette all primed with matte black from Colourforge. I've given them a once over with Abaddon black. So now we can start applying the rest of our colours. So first off, we're going to use some Wraithbone on the half of his face that is still skin. So paint all over the half of the face, including the nose and exposed mouth and beard with Wraithbone. You might want 2 layers over the black. Just wait for the first to dry and come back in with a second afterwards. So there we go, 2 coats of Wraithbone down, ready to move to our next colour. I'm going to pick out his beard with Corax White. Won't really reach very much of it, but we'll get what we can. So we'll just get the areas that we can reach, which is about his mustache just along here. And beard along the bottom. Any mistakes we'll tidy up later on. And with that, then we're ready to move on to our metallics, and our first one is going to be Lead Belcher, so we've got quite a few areas to cover with this. So most of the areas we've got to cover with this are fairly small, so I'm going to stick to my small layer brush. So we got the half of his head that's bionic, including his eye. We've got the pistons down the front of his armour. A couple of small areas of detail on his plasma blade gauntlet, as well as a small circular detail on his vein where the energy field generates from. Then we'll want to jump to our medium base brush for the rest of the details. So we've got the entirety of the Vulcanite disintegrator to cover, as well as all these cables coming to and from the guns and weapons. As well as these coming down the backs of the legs. And also, don't forget to get the grenade launcher. There we go, all of our metallic areas are base coated, including the spine there that I missed out. Yeah, looking good. So before we do the matte colours that the magazine tells us to do, we'll skip ahead to our next metallic Retributor armour, so we only have to change our water to once. So, onto our model, we've got all of the inlay, intricate detail to pick out. We've got the head of our crest, so either the ram or the horse. Whichever one you chose. Just take your time getting all of the small areas of inlay And you'll probably want 2 layers over the black base coat. There we go, all of our gold detail is now done. And we're ready to move on to our last 2 matte colours. So our first one is Mephiston Red. This is going to be for the energy of the plasma blade, any lights and sensors, as well as the plume here on the crest. So first off, we'll get the plasma blade here. We've got lights on his belt and on his chest, as well as the bionic eye there. We got the plume here on the back of his crest. So there we go, all of our red areas are base coated, and we've got one last colour to do before we can come in with a black for a tidy up, and that is Avalanche Sunset. Of course, these guys have a Kronos Hegemony, so we need to show some yellow somewhere, and on these guys we're going to do their left knee pad as well as the casing on their pistols. So some fresh paint on our brush, we'll pick out the left knee pad. And you'll want 2 layers, maybe even 3 over the black undercoat. And then we're going to get the entirety of the gun casing, being careful around the magazine clip. And these 2 small bits here which need to be kept silver, as well as the muzzle on the disintegrator. So there we go, all tidied up and ready for the shade stage. As you can see, I've also applied my basing detail down, and that's fully dried. So now we can start with Nuln Oil. So I'm going to use my small layer brush for most of it, as we've got details such as these red lenses, eyes, and the facial hair. And we've also got the plasma blade to pick out with this colour as well. Don't forget to get both sides. And of course we've got the plume at the back. And then we'll switch over to our shade brush to get the base detail. With those details done, we can move over to Agrax Earthshade for all of our metallic details. So this is going to be for both the metallic and the silver and the gold. So I'll just pick out all these details. There's some Agrax Earthshade. And with the Agrax down and drying, we've got one last shade to do, and this is going to be for the yellow and bare pale skin, and that's going to be right on flesh shade. So we use our small layer brush for this, as we need quite a bit of control. So we'll get the exposed bare skin there. Then we got the yellow of the gun casing. The knee. And finally, the bits of yellow on the grenade launcher. And you notice mine's jiggling about. That's because I accidentally snapped it off while doing the touch up with the black. So if it falls off, I'm going to end up pinning it on my own time. But for the moment, I'll leave it as is until it does fall off again. Now that our shades are fully dried, we're ready to move on to our highlight stage. So I'm going to do things in a little bit of a different order to what the magazine says. I'm going to leave the silver till last, so we don't have to change our water again. But our first colour then is Pallid Witch Flesh to highlight the bare skin. We won't need a lot of this, just picking out the nose, the eyebrow, and where the skin meets the bionics. So with that detail done, our next colour is going to be Mechanicus Standard Grey, and this is to edge highlight all the armour, so it's going to take a while. So where we can, we'll try to use the edge of our brush, so along the back of the vein here, we'll get those sharp edges. The other side of our brush. But for most of the areas, like the larger panels here, we're going to need to use the tip of our brush, tracing around the edges. And there we go with a rather chunky highlight done on the armour. This definitely requires some tidying up later on. I'll do that on my own time. We're on to our final colour. So we want Stormhost Silver to pick out all the gold and silver details with a light edge highlight. So we want to pick out the gold trim, just gently picking out the corners. Helps not having too much on your brush. I've got a little bit too much, I think, on my brush, but that's the best I've done so far. We'll get there. Then we want to do a highlight on the armour, on his head, getting the area around the eye, and where the head meets the flesh, like so. And pick out the crest detail. And with the base top dry brush, the base rim painted in Abaddon Black, our Hachette is finished and has joined his unit ready to expand the boundaries of the Kronos hegemony. So these guys are really fun and simple to paint. Nice that majority of the colour is armour. I think if I did it my own way, I'd probably dry brush the armour with Mechanicus Grey, then shade down the entire armour with Nuln Oil to help dull down the flatter panels. But yeah, the paint guide in the magazine does them pretty good justice, I think. Still a lot to do. We're waiting for yellow to highlight the yellow details and white to highlight all the white areas. Plus, we have red in a couple of issues' time, so we'll be able to highlight the plasma blades once we get the tutorial, as we haven't been given the tutorial for that just yet. But it should be a nice, fairly simple tutorial. We'll probably wait till we have the yellow Then we'll have all the colours, and we can do fire and plasma effects all in sort of one video. But there we have it. That's it. Up next then, we're going to try these guys out in our battle. So they'll be joining the Carl and a couple of units of Hearthkin as they battle a veritable horde of Tyranids. So I hope you'll join me for that. All that's left for me to do is say thank you all very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Let me know how you got on painting your own Einhyr Hearthguard in the comment section, and I will see you next time for more Combat Patrol Carnage. Goodbye.